Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Roland Academy Educational Series. Today's webinar is going to be how to create custom apparel using Roland TrueVIS technology. Again, my name is Daniel Valade, and I'm here with Lily Hunter. We're two of the product managers here at Roland DGA, and we have the opportunity to go over some of our newest technology with our TrueVIS inks and our TrueVIS SG and VG series printers, and using our HeatSoft transfer materials. I'm the product manager for the printers, the eco-solvent line, and Lily over here is our not only sublimation expert, but also our full line of media expert. So we hope you guys get something great out of our webinar today.
Welcome. We really appreciate you joining us. So we love it when you guys type in questions, and we will address them as best as we can during the presentation. So please don't hesitate to ask. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And we'll try to get through them as much as we can. And whatever we miss, we know how to get in touch with you to answer those questions.
That's right. So without further ado, let's get into our presentation here. First being the new TrueVIS technology. One of the reasons why we're doing this apparel webinar again, specifically for TrueVIS, is the nature of the TrueVIS inks is a little bit different from our EcoSol Max and our Max 2. So we want to make sure that you have the correct printer settings for optimal print and cut quality. One of the big things about having two different materials in our lineup is making sure that you're choosing the right HeatSoft material for your specific application.
Absolutely.
And of course, at a Roland educational series, we always have to have some tips and tricks, and we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for masking and applying HTM to your garments and accessories, and some of the aftercare, and a couple of pro tips in VersaWorks as well.
Yes.
First things first, let's talk about profiles. I mentioned earlier that using the specific profiles that are available for the HeatSoft materials is very important when talking about TrueVIS. We had a lot of requests from customers over the last couple of years for a more vibrant ink with more vibrant color and also a faster drying ink. And with that comes a couple of trade-offs, and we want to make sure that everybody gets the best quality out of it. And so the Roland Profile Center.us, if you can see in the second bullet point here, is a place where we house all of our custom profiles, both our Roland DGA media, and we also have third-party media that's available on this website as well.
It is a free resource, so if you haven't signed up already, please go ahead and do that, and you can download as many or as little profiles that you need, so that way you are set up and ready to go. And also, one of the things why we're stressing using the correct color profile is that we want to steer people away from using generic vinyl profiles. Even though it may have worked for you in the past with EcoSol Max and EcoSol Max 2 inks with HeatSoft material, you really want to use the correct profile for the TrueVIS series just because it's a newly reformulated inks. And as Daniel said, with these new reformulation for brighter colors, and a little goes a long way, so you don't want to oversaturate your media or anything else.
So I've been doing a couple of live VersaWorks trainings and things like that, and I've come to realize that some of our users, especially folks that are newer to the business, are a little intimidated by getting onto the Roland Profile Center, downloading and going through the whole process. So I thought the first thing that we do today, to make sure everybody has a chance to get the correct profile, and again, we're talking about the best quality here, is we'll actually go to the Roland Profile Center. I'm going to show you guys how to download a custom profile and actually import it into VersaWorks.
Now, I have a quick question while you go ahead and set that up.
All right.
We have someone here who actually does not have a VG or a TrueVIS printer and using a VersaCam. Now,
okay.
This webinar is also going to go over very, generic tips and tricks with, the media and how to apply media to certain substrates. So yes, this will be helpful to you even if you currently don't have the VG printers or the SG printers with the TrueVIS inks.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go in and I'm going to take a profile that I don't currently have loaded into VersaWorks, and I'm using the TrueVIS SG300. That's what I have loaded up right now. So under my printer setting here, I'm going to kind of wave my mouse around. In the printer setting, I have the SG300 selected. My ink type is going to be TrueVIS, and CMYK is my ink setup. Of course, we're using Roland VersaWorks Dual to drive the SG300, so we have our RIP manufacturer as Roland, and VersaWorks Dual 1.X, which means it's going to go all the way through the entire 1 series. We're going to do a Roland specific media today. I'm going to do our premium cast vinyl. I've already got HeatSoft loaded up into my queue, so this is going to be a fresh install. So now once I've done that, it's given me, hey, I've got 3 profiles for this. So let's get some more information about this. As we scroll down here, you can see that we've got a 7-pass, a 10-pass, and a 14-pass version. Right off the bat, we can tell that when we have a lower pass count, that's going to be whatever the I don't want to say lowest quality, but maybe a standard quality. And then as we get higher pass count, that's where we get more improved quality here. So let's just add this middle of the row one here, probably a standard quality. We'll add it to our queue, and we'll go ahead and download that queue. Oh, it wants me to sign back in again. Give me 1 second here.
And you can reach the Roland Profile Center through our Roland DGA website. So it links to that. So you can definitely access that through our main website.
So we'll go ahead and start the download. It's a very quick process. It doesn't take a ton of time. We're going to actually open this up. And I'm going to go ahead and extract this file so that it's able to be found. We will copy and replace that. And let's move this into my Dropbox over here for the SG, into the profile section. That's the way I can find my profile. So you want to always house your profiles in the same area. Let's just do it right here in the firmware section then. Now I'm going to go into VersaWorks, and here's where we actually are going to load the file up. So if you guys have VersaWorks open, now's a good time to follow along, or if you have your pen and paper out and you're taking notes, now's a good time. So
and screenshots work too.
Screenshots always work. So up here we have our menu titles up, and we're going to go to the Media and Media Explorer. And if you've never been in this little area before, what this is where all of your custom profiles are housed. So anytime you're in the Quality tab and you drop down your profiles, this is where it's being generated from. At the very top, I'm going to go to the folder to say, hey, I want to add one of these. And I'm going to go right back to where the file container was and go ahead and open that up. That's not what I wanted. I want this one in our Dropbox and SG series. And we did it in our firmware, and there's my, oh, don't know why it doesn't want to go into there. Let's find it one more time. Oh, there's HTM3. Let's try that one more time. Here we go. I'm going to start the whole process over. I apologize for that. I don't know why I didn't want to recognize that specific profile.
And as you can see, there are different profiles, and as Daniel said earlier, it's not just limited to Roland DGA media. We have media partners that you can definitely choose from to see if they have profiles for the specific media. And also, it's not limited to Roland VersaWorks either. We have different RIP partners that have created profiles, whether it's Onyx, SAI, so you can definitely have a little bit more flexibility with what you're using. And if you don't find a color profile from a third-party media manufacturer in the Profile Center, definitely either give us a call or get in contact with that media manufacturer, because they may be working on it and it hasn't been loaded yet, or they may have a different profile that is suitable for the media that you are going to be using. All right, so we're going to continue with the download, and normally it doesn't take this long, so obviously on the day of the webinar, we have different things that pop up.
right, now let's go get it.
So whether you're using Roland VersaWorks or VersaWorks Dual, this all looks the same. So you would pretty much follow the same steps.
And there's our SGPA. And all we're going to do is click OK. And once I say yes, we'll see it appear over here. So now it's appearing into our drop-down menu. And if I go back into our quality tab, we'll now have the SGPA. So that would work for any of the profiles that you guys want to be able to download. Sorry it took me 2 times to do that. I don't know why I didn't want to recognize the first file there. I think it thought it was a VG file. But again, having the correct profile, even if it does take 2 times, it's very important to make sure you get the, highest quality possible there. Talking about a little bit of high quality, while we're sitting here in VersaWorks, going through the quality settings, if I actually select, let's say our HTM3 here, we have 2 separate settings. We have a high quality and a standard. Now, Lily, in your experience, most folks, I think, are using the standard mode for typical T-shirts or graphic design being transferred onto other accessories, hats, or like we're going to do some backpacks today and some other types of things like that.
Right.
But there is a use for high quality.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, I always recommend that you print the same image in both high quality and standard,
Right.
and just apply and let your customer choose.
Sure.
There are certain applications where you may have that one picky customer that really absolutely needs that high quality, and when it's paired with our HTM3, which has a higher sheen, it actually looks really nice.
Right.
So it doesn't hurt to print out both of them and see which one works best. And in high quality, you know, depending on how large of the job is, you'll notice the estimated time to finish that job. So for this case, you know, just for 3 images, the difference between high quality and standard isn't that much. But if you're going to do high quality, it might be good to even put it into unidirectional.
Yeah, if I change it to unidirectional, then it's going to almost double my time. Usually the difference between unidirectional and bidirectional, even on a small job, is going to either double the time, or if you're going backwards, it's going to about half your time. But again, using a high quality and a unidirection setting, that's going to give you a very, very, very high quality. That said, for our production folks out there, standard mode, bidirectional, you're going to get the kind of quality you need. It's a very, most of the HeatSoft materials and other third-party heat transfer materials are more of a matte type finish, even though we have some sheen to our HTM3. It's mostly a kind of a matte finish, so the 720 by 720 if you're using the VSI, or 900 by 600 for our TrueVIS folks out there that are joining us for this specific webinar.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in regards to printing, if you guys have any questions that are specific, please definitely let us know, and we can definitely address some of the questions, whether the settings that should be used, or if you have any further questions. So in regards to the prints, now, well, with this, we call them the little dancing ants.
Yeah.
It's a file that is print and cut. So
we can actually take a look at the cut-only side, so we can just see the dancing ants here.
Right. So then that kind of leads me to the cutting portion of you know, some of the questions that we get in regards to blades and cutting and things of that nature.
So let's get into, let's pull the PowerPoint back up here, and a few tips that I want to talk to you guys about when it's coming to the blade. These materials can both be used with a 45-degree blade or a 60-degree blade. The difference in using a 45 or a 60 is fine detail. If you're going to be cutting something with very fine detail, you're doing very small lettering, where you're not blocking out the background and you're actually cutting through and leaving negative space, a 60-degree blade is going to give you the best cut quality possible. That said, most of the designs that you guys will see us transferring today were cut with a 45-degree blade. alternating between the two is an option. There's also no reason why you can't just use a 60-degree blade all the time.
Right, but always have extras on hand.
Absolutely, you can always have extras on hand. I usually typically leave a 60-degree blade just because I like to do a lot of brush script and things like that. But a 45-degree blade, if that's what you're using, should be okay. But the more important part is when we get into the actual pressure settings. I've noticed with a lot of the polyurethane-based materials, like our heat transfer material is that we're talking about today, they're very forgiving when it comes to being able to add a lot of pressure to your, or a lot of cut force to the job. The problem is it's not going through the backer, so you think that you're okay.
Right.
But it's leaving little grooves, and it kind of makes it so the material kind of self-heals almost, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to weed. So my first tip is to make sure that you start low. These materials can be cut anywhere from 70 grams up to 90 grams, depending on how much blade extension you have and how dull or sharp your blade happens to be. Now, talking about blade extension, a good way to gauge right out the start, to give a kind of a quick reference, is to pull out one of your credit cards and make sure that you're no more than about half the thickness of a credit card. That's all you need. All you're trying to do is to get through that top 2, 3, 4 mils, depending on which material it is, and just barely scoring the backer of the material. So if you have a lot of blade extension, if you can pull your blade holder out and you can see it right away that you have more than a credit card's thickness out there, you're going to give yourself a shorter life on your blade, and you're going to give yourself a more difficult time dialing in your cut pressures for sure.
So typically, how long should a blade last you if done correctly?
You know, every blade has a different kind of rating. If you're using one of our OEM blades, one of our ZEC models, the U3050 or U5025, it's about 10,000 linear yards, which sounds like just like it would kind of go on forever, but remember that's both in the X and the Y direction. So I typically, cutting 2 to 3 hours a day, will get somewhere between 3 and 5 months life out of one of my blades.
Right. So now, are there some telltale signs that it's time to replace a blade?
Absolutely. So if you're starting to do your test cuts and you're noticing that the test cut is leaving behind incomplete cuts on the circle, and there's a little square that gets cut inside, and they're not peeling off independently from each other very easily, pull your blade out, take a look, make sure that the housing is clean of the blade holder, and make sure there's no vinyl
or even vinyl
adhesive build up onto the tip. And if that's not the case and you're still getting those cuts, it might be time to change the blade. If you've got really good eyes or a little loop, you can take a look at the blade very close and tell if it's dull and ready to be replaced or not. But always have a couple of extra blades on hand just in case something happens.
All right. Okay, so now question here, and actually this goes back to VersaWorks, and so we can go over how to do this. Now, as you're printing, and it's talking more about dry time now. If say, even if you're using the correct profile at the lowest number of passes, and it still looks very glossy and maybe even a little tacky to the touch, and we're talking about dry time, especially if we're doing the printing and then cutting. Any tips and tricks, or what should you do?
Yeah, I always like to give this example. It's an example somebody gave me once, and it made a lot of sense to me. You take a dry piece of paper, like a notebook piece of paper, and you take a knife, sharp knife, and you drag through it. You can get a very nice clean cut. Put a little bit of water on there, make it moist, and you try to drag that knife through there. It's going to be very, very, very jagged. So you want your print to be dry while you're cutting it. There's 2 different ways we can go about this. The typical way, if we go back into VersaWorks here, we'll jump back in. I'm going to pull up this file real quick. What a lot of people will do is if they have a very saturated graphic, now I'm talking about solid blacks and solid greens and solid blues and things like that, where it's going to be very, very heavily saturated. We can go into printer controls, and we always use those default media settings. See, I'm waving my mouse over this, and it's everything is grayed out. And the reason why we do that is because those custom profiles take into consideration your feed, your heat, dry time, all of that kind of stuff. But if we know that we're doing something that's a little bit outside the box, we can use our custom settings. And we can also do that down here, use custom settings here, and we can add a little bit of dry time. 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 60 minutes. I find with heat transfer material, 5 minutes is more than enough needed between the time that you print and go back into cut to get a nice clean cut on that. Now don't go changing anything else, the head heights and vacuum power, remember that's all built into the custom profile, and we want to make sure that those stay the same.
Right, we definitely don't want you to skew the quality of the colors or your prints. So just don't touch anything else, and just for the extra time for drying. Especially if you're in a very humid area and maybe you don't have an extra external heater to help dry the inks and things of that nature. Okay, so while we're still in VersaWorks, it kind of pertains to the same question, is in regards to the accuracy of cutting. So you have a long job that may use up, say, 6 feet or so.
Yeah.
Is it okay to print the whole job and then come back and cut? Or should we do it in sections just to maintain accuracy? And what are some of your thoughts and feedback?
There are a couple different things we can do. I'm going to show one quick trick here too also. So those production guys, because we're talking about somebody who's going to be producing. So maybe they don't have that 5 minutes of dry time. They need this job done by the end of the day. So I can go into cut controls, and I can actually tell this to do a cut only, and then return to origin after cut. And what that's going to give me the ability to do is it's going to go and it's going to do all of my cutting on the heat transfer material without having any ink laid down, and then it can return to origin, and we can change this to print only. Now we can print right over the top of those contour cut lines, and we're not going to have to worry about our blade digging into the ink and causing any kind of poor cut quality. Now, keeping in tune with those guys who are the production folks that want to be able to do longer runs, let's get out of this 3 copy here, and we'll go into, you said about 6 feet, so we'll go 27 copies and see where that puts us. So we've got about 9 rows here. That's about 36 inches. So we're getting close to 40 inches here. Now we can imagine this is 20 feet long if we wanted to.
Right.
It doesn't matter. At the very top up here, now you guys might want to have your pen and paper out, or this will be archived, but this is a great tip that you can start using right away.
Screenshots.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna copy my width here because I need to make sure that I keep that in tune. So I'm going to Control C, and I'm going to copy that width, and then I'm going to change this to custom cut from custom roll. Now you notice that my width went back to the maximum over here to 29, and then all of a sudden I have 104 inches opened up here for the length. We don't want it to go 104 inches, that's the entire page, and you can see it's one job here. Let's take these at 4.24 each, so almost 4.5. If we wanted to do 2 rows of these at a time at about 9 inches each. So I'm going to change my 104 inches to 9, and watch what happens to the amount of jobs I have. It now has gone to 3. So it's broken it up into 2 rows. It's going to print this row, these 2 rows, wind back to origin and cut, and then start the next job. Print these 2 rows, wind back to origin, and cut the next job. Now the advantage here is it's only moving 9 inches, coming back and doing your cut. Instead of printing out 40 inches forward, returning to origin for another 40 inches, now we're 80, and then it's got to go another 40 inches
right, and there's
out of the front.
So much room for error, with a little bit of skewing and.
Right, these are friction-fed devices, so there's a grit roller and there's a pinch roller, and they're pushing the media forward, and the more times that it's going to go back and forth, the more chance of inaccuracy you're going to have over the time. Now, TrueVIS printers are known for being very accurate when it comes to print and cut. But with any device out there, if you're going to go from roll to roll, you want to do 40 yards or 50 yards and have it print overnight, custom cut is the way to go about that. It keeps a strong accuracy over the course of an entire job. So when we do our production samples, this is how we do it. So we'll do a 75-yard roll from start to finish using our custom cut feature.
Absolutely, and also the media's passing over the platen, which has heat, so expansion, contraction, adding to the feed. It can definitely wreak havoc if you print too much before cutting. All right. Now we have a quick question.
Okay.
In regards to setting the pressure for your blade, do you do that in VersaWorks or do you do that at the printer itself?
I typically do that at the printer itself. Most of the printers that we have that are available today have the ability to be able to change cut pressure on the fly.
Right.
So I like to set my cut pressure at the machine level. However, if we are in VersaWorks, we can say and tell it what to do, blade force, and we can change the offset here. But we need to make sure that we are using the default settings for the machine.
It might be best to do this at the printer side, because if you're going to do your test cut over there, and you're already at the printer, it makes sense to just
You can do it either way, but yeah,
control.
most of our users typically like being at the control panel. And like I said, if you're seeing that the cut accuracy isn't great, or you're losing accuracy over time, you can actually change on the fly the cut pressure. So that's something that you guys can actually change while it's cutting. So if you need to add a little bit of pressure or pull a little bit of pressure back, you can do that on the fly.
Okay. Now, in regards to one more question regarding the color profiles as in the quality, can you play around with different color management? Like, for instance, one of the questions is, what is the difference between, let's say, pre-pressed general to max impact? Do you even play around with that, and will that affect how much ink and color, is laid down?
Yes, we can definitely talk about that a little bit here. So what we're talking about here is down here, most of our profiles, most everybody who creates a profile, whether it's Roland DGA or it's a third-party manufacturer, they use pre-pressed general as the color management tool. So as we try to match colors, it's very important to stay at the preset that the profile was designed with. However, if you have somebody who just wants to see dark, rich colors and very vivid impact and high contrast, we can actually change the color management here. And as we move down from max impact and sign and display and max density, these are actually adding a little bit more ink to the actual print. So yes, you will have some color shift. If you're trying to hit a specific PMS color or a specific spot color, this is going to cause those colors to kind of shift a little bit. Now, if you have somebody who just wants to see those bright, pretty pictures and they're not logo sensitive and things like that,
you don't need to hit Coca-Cola red.
then you're more than happy to go down and try a sign and display to give it a little bit more pop, if you will.
Right.
Now, the beauty of the TrueVIS inks is at pre-pressed general, you already get a very, very high quality print and a very vivid image with a lot of pop, if you will, to it already.
All right. So the rule of thumb is leave most of the default settings just because it's dialed in, but you can play around with a few things, but keep in mind, especially with color management, there is that potential for any skewing or shifting of colors. And so just be aware of that. And just remember what the previous settings were and take lots of good notes.
Absolutely.
All right, all right. So, well, let's see.
Any more VersaWorks questions before we get out of the VersaWorks side of it?
No, but I have one question in regards to a BN20 user who has a blade force that defaults to 50. Start at 50 or just start up at the 75?
50 is going to be a little bit low. I'd jump it up to 70 or 75 is a good starting point. But the important part, the point I'm trying to make it at going at 70, because I walk into a lot of shops and they've got the blade force at 120 grams or and that's what they're cutting with, is starting low because you want to have your cut pressure at the lowest possible setting it can be while still giving you a clean cut.
Absolutely.
So I say start at 70 or 75 and work your way up. I think it's better to work your way up than to try to come back down.
Right, and as you said, the poly liner that comes with our heat transfer materials can absorb a lot of that pressure, so it's deceiving. So it looks like you're not putting enough pressure, you're increasing the pressure, and now it gets to the point where, like you said, it causes the material to self-heal, and that affects the weeding because it's now getting stuck and hung up on it. So, well, with that, let's move on to the media side of things.
So now the actual fun part, for everybody here. We're actually going to talk about material selection.
All right. So we recently launched the HeatSoft SATIN. And so now we have two product offerings under the Roland brand. So we have the HTM3 and then we have the HTMS, S for satin. Now both of these are polyurethane based materials, very, very similar in regards to the look and how you apply it. By the look, I mean just it is polyurethane. Now, there is a big difference in the sheen of it. HTM3 is a very glossy material, whereas the satin is going to mimic more of the screen print look. This is the biggest request we were getting from our customers. Even though they enjoy HTM3 for certain jobs, they do prefer something that wasn't as shiny.
Yep.
And so those are the differences. And now another difference is the HTM3 has a higher stretch. So It's good for not just your basic cotton, polyester, or blends. You can use it on Lycra or Spandex. And you can actually use it on leather. So the adhesive that is on this material is able to stick on a little bit more different, a higher variety. And whereas the HeatSoft satin, that's going to stick on basically to your basic cotton, poly blends, and polyester. And not as much stretch.
Yeah, I see a lot of folks really happy about the screen printed look for a lot of like the single line t-shirts, like, you know, hashtag I'm Savage or something along those lines, where it looks like it's just one of those, like it was a screen printed job, but not actually having to send it to a screen printer.
Definitely. And the one main thing that both of these have in common is they are CPSIA certified. So if you're not aware of what that is, it just means that this is safe for use in baby products, whether it's onesies or blankets or little washcloths and things that you can personalize. It's safe for children and babies. And if you're going to get into this market, the requirement is to have CPSIA certified media and matched with our inks. Our inks are also Green Guard Gold certified. So these certifications are done independently outside of Roland third party. So they're the ones that go through all the testing and will let you know if you pass or fail. So definitely opens up a lot more applications with this certification. All right. So fun time with applications.
Application time. So getting into how we actually get an image off of the backing and the liner and onto our t-shirt here, there's a middle of the row process here. We have our HeatSoft Plus PGM PTM2, which is our transfer mask. This is a medium tack transfer mask, and it works great with both our HeatSoft Plus and our HeatSoft satin material. Another cool part about this is the liner on the back side, right?
Yes.
And we have a place where we can actually store our pre-masked materials. So let's get into actually weeding this material and a couple of tips and tricks for actually masking, and get our little weeding tool out here. So it's very important that you always have the right tools, right? So I have a very sharp weeding tool here that's very ready to be put into use. It's not dull on the end, so as I try to pull the centers out here, it's not going to give me any problems. I've got my trusted squeegee, making sure that I can get my graphic onto our transfer mask without having any kind of problems. And I always keep a pair of scissors right next to me so I can trim up these graphics if needed. So the first thing I do when I'm weeding, now some folks might get all the big stuff out of the way and then come back and get the small stuff. I like to make sure I get anything that I can get out now, like the little E here.
Things that I have forgotten in the past.
Yeah, because I don't want to forget these things. I got this little, up here on the L on my Claire, I've got this little guy here that I want to make sure I get out and not forget and end up transferring it.
Yes.
I have done that in the past myself.
Happens to the best of us.
Kind of just glance around, and I don't have anything. The next thing I'm going to do is just kind of come over here and grab one of these corners. And now the beauty about this material, and I'm using right now the HeatSoft satin, is just how incredibly easy it is to weed. I'm not being very careful here at all. I'm just kind of ripping it away almost. And I've got no corners pulled up, no edges pulled up. Now, do you see what I missed? What I could have actually transferred over here? I could have ended up transferring the center A because I didn't pull that out. And I thought it would stick and pull out all together, but I'm just going to get rid of that really quick. And a little bit different from what I've seen other folks do in live demonstrations. I've seen some folks do it the way I'm going to do it here. Is I'm going to take my mask. This is the adhesive side, and I'm going to face it up towards me. And then I'm going to take my graphic, and I'm going to make it kind of into like a U shape here. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to roll it on with as few air bubbles as possible. And I'm going to let gravity do its job, and I'm just going to kind of from the middle out in both directions, squeegee this onto the material. Now I don't have to put a ton of pressure at all. And then as I go to pull the mask away, notice I've kept everything upside down the whole time here. I'm going to pull away at kind of a sharp angle. And again, I'm not being very ginger or soft with this at all. I'm going right to town on it, and then I've got to transfer. Now, if I want to, I can transfer this and it's ready to go. I can go take it over to my t-shirt and my heat press and put it on right now. If this is something I'm going to hold on to for a while, or I'm going to send it to somebody else, I can put it right back onto the transfer mask backer. And don't put this back onto the backer of the HTM material. Make sure you're putting it back onto the backer of the masking material, the PGM2. So this is ready to go again, and it's
an easier release.
Yep.
So we've had issues where people have stated to us, and we've seen it ourselves here, is we'll pre-mask quite a bit of materials, say for a trade show demonstration, and we did not remove the original poly liner from the heat transfer material. Well, over time, you have a polyester liner, you just put on a polyester mask, there's going to be a confusion as to, gee, which polyester material am I going to stick to? And since there's no adhesive on the top, it's going to default to sticking to its original liner. So it's best to go through this process and save that liner from your transfer mask. It has a nice silicone, highly silicone coating on it, and so that way it's great to use it for for jobs that you are just doing a lot of pre-mask. And so I'm going to go over a few different questions in regards to how long do you have to wait after printing before masking. It is a polyurethane product. If it's not tacky to the touch where you needed that extra drying, you can actually mask it pretty quickly. So there's really no set rule of outgassing at that point. So, but the main thing is just make sure that the ink, the prints are dry to the touch, and you can mask right away. And yes, you can layer it on glitter, metallic, or any of those other things. So now, one of the questions that I also have regarding PTM2 is it doesn't pull the graphic off as easily. So a couple things. Make sure that the mask is not near a heat source, because that actually loosens or lessens that tackiness because it's preparing to release it. So make sure that it's stored in an area at room temperature, nowhere near a heat source, so then that way you still have the nice higher tack level. It is a medium tack product.
I would also say to make sure that with these particular products, do it the way that I just did, where we pull the mask off and you're turning the mask upside down and applying
like
the
gravity.
graphic upside down and let the gravity
pushing
kind
it
of do its
into it.
job.
All right, so we are going to, Daniel is going to show a couple different applications in regards to some unique applications, not necessarily just t-shirts. And
well, we're always doing t-shirts. We've got a couple of webinars with a ton of t-shirts, and I can do a t-shirt as well. But I thought we'd go a little bit outside the box here, and I brought in a backpack. And I'm going to go ahead and weed one more time over here and get this wild camping graphic ready to go. So I'm just going to hook into this onto the corner real quick.
And then while you're doing that, let me answer a couple questions in regards to the durability and things of that nature. In regards to washes, both the HTM3 has been tested, and it lasts up to 50 wash dry cycles. And in regards to HTMS, very similar, 25 to 50 wash cycles. It all depends on how you launder it, and we'll go over that at the end.
Absolutely. So I've got this odd-shaped backpack here. I've got zippers and pouches and all that, and I want to put my graphic right up here. Problem is there's kind of a lip that goes around the edge here, and I don't have one of these fancy pillows that everybody has.
So you make do with what you got to do.
So I make do what I do. I make my own little pillow here out of one of my t-shirts. And I just made sure that the pillow is about the same size as my graphic. And then I feel through to make sure that I'm on the right spot. Perfect. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use one of my handy dandy pieces of transfer mask.
All right. So bottom line is you want that even surface. That's the key thing to a successful heat transfer application, you need to have the correct temperature. And for these materials, you can either set them at 295 to 300. We've gone lower to maybe 270, depending on how thin or how thick the material is or the type of material. So you need that constant heat, a constant pressure, and the time.
And we want to do this at a medium pressure, but a medium pressure is going to be much lower considering how thick the substrate is that I'm going to be pressing onto here. So I actually had that down to probably a 2 or what would normally have been a 2 or a 3 for a t-shirt, but it got me back up to the number 7 up here. You can't really see that, but that's okay. We're at a number 7 here on our Hottronics clamshell, which is about medium pressure. Check with your manufacturer what medium is for your particular item. So we were able to transfer directly onto the backpack here. Kind of cool with the camouflage and the wild camping theme that's in the background.
Now, if you want to do a second press over this just to seal it in, to give it that added durability, you can definitely do that and just press it after you remove the mask, and you can do a quick 2 to 5 second press.
So I'm going to move on. This time we're going to use our HTM3 material. Now, as Lily had explained before, it's great for materials that have a little bit more stretch to it. Now, these are some pretty big shorts. I don't think these are going to be skin tight on anybody, but they do have some stretch to them.
And if they are skin tight, please get different shorts.
Yeah, please get some different shorts if you're going to do that. So I've got a graphic here. I'm going to use the same piece of mask that I already used because I've heard people saying that they're having a little bit of trouble doing that. I find I can use this mask 2 or 3 times.
Right, and it all depends too. If there's a lot of lint or whatever debris that's being picked up by the mask,
Yep.
then it's time to move on. And also, this mask was just recently used, so the adhesion value may not be
a little bit of heat.
The heat, kind of deadens that adhesive. So we're, it's still usable. The neat thing with this is if the material lifts or doesn't transfer totally, you can definitely play around with it. It's very forgiving, and you can, maneuver things.
I increased the pressure just a little bit here because we had the thick item from before. And notice even though I changed materials and even though I changed the substrate that I'm on, I kept the heat the same, and I think we'll still have a good transfer here, but you never know. Anybody can make a mistake, right?
Right.
Oh, this one, there we go.
So this one would be good to do a quick...
I'm going to hit it with another press real quick to lock that back in. Now I don't need any kind of protection because this is a polyurethane material, just flattening out everything. And I'm going to come back and just hit it for a quick 2 or 3 seconds.
And the key thing is it is a polyurethane material. I think with PVC material,
there we go.
You may need to cover it, and it's just the nature of the material and
the really cool part about this is the ability to be able to stretch this. So that's really what we wanted to show, is how much stretch the HTM3 actually has. The last thing that I want to do, which is a little bit out of the box for us, because we don't usually do these, would you be so kind as to mask that little one for me?
Absolutely.
And I think that I have a piece of mask right over there.
Okey-doke.
So we have our hat heat press here today. And now the cool part about this is we could do a bunch of little logos. If this is for a jogathon or a special golf event, you could have your main logo here and any kind of sponsorships over on the side if it's a corporate event, or if it's just something that we're doing for fun. Lily is going to town over here getting this all masked.
Absolutely. Hey, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
But you can add as many different little logos as you want, or you can make it one logo right throughout the side. But the versatility, that's the part that we're really trying to show you here, is how versatile these materials are and how many different applications you can actually have just using 2 different materials. Just going to place my graphic right into the center. And same process, even though it's a hat, I'm going to go 15 seconds at about a medium pressure.
All right.
Oops. And let that cool just so it's a nice warm peel. And you can see, I want to show you guys the mask here. Because I'm using the correct profile, I've got no ink transfer over to my mask using these. And we've got our cool little 5K hat here, CMY 5K hat. So we've done a hat, a backpack, some athletic shorts, just some things that we can do that are a little bit outside the box for heat transfer material that's just not a typical cotton t-shirt.
Yes, so we've done director's chair back, the backs of those director chairs on those canvas totes. Just, as you know, it's just a variety of different things. So always test your material. You may have to adjust the temperature a bit or the time or the pressure. So if you have a small scrap piece of that material, it's always good to do some different tests just to make sure.
All right. Now we've got a nice transfer, it's onto our nice garment, and we want to hand it off to our customer, and we want to make sure our customer comes back to us, and so we want to give them some tips on how to make the garment or the accessory that they just got their hands on last as long as possible.
So the first thing, wait 24 hours at least for before the first wash. And that just makes sure everything sets on the materials, and you don't want the material to be hit with the laundry detergent, softener, freshener, all the other different chemicals. So that's where waiting 24 hours before the first wash comes in handy.
I don't really do this a whole lot, but you should, if you want to make it last a little longer, turn the garment inside out. That can help extend the life, having, especially in the dryer cycle. I've noticed that the shirts where I've done actual testing to make sure that we get up to that 25 or 50 wash mark, depending on what material it is. I find that actually turning the shirt inside out, when I get into those higher wash cycles, when I start to hit 30 washes, it made a difference if I did it for the first 25. So.
Right, and you know what, and I did a test consecutively with Daniel and threw it in with the family's wash, with the kids' stuff. Some were inside out, some weren't. Some were done on cold, some were done on warm. Some were done on hot, and so we just wanted to put it through a variety of different tests and just to make sure, and then put it in the dryer. Now, the main thing I want to point out is, first and foremost, follow the care instructions for the garment, because for some products, it does not require, or they don't want you to put it in the dryer. So just follow the instructions and wash accordingly. And you don't have to turn it inside out, but if you want to extend the lifetime, it should help. Yep. And the thing is, with polyurethane film, it's a higher quality film than PVC. So most of the time, you should not see cracking. At least the ones that we've tested with the 50 wash dry cycles, we didn't experience cracking. So if there was a question in regards to cracking and showing age. With the tests that we've done, the multiple tests that we've done, we saw more wear and tear on the t-shirt, and we started with like a black t-shirt, and that wore out first before the actual material or the fading of the inks.
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, check and see if you have a polyurethane film base or if it's a PVC base.
as well.
PVC base, or maybe some of the less expensive materials, you may see the wear and tear a lot sooner.
So, main takeaway that I would like folks for today, especially our TrueVIS users out there, is to make sure that you're using the custom profiles. Make sure that you're taking advantage of the legwork that we did to make sure that we've dialed in the profile so you're not transferring too much ink from your HTM material onto your t-shirt. You're not leaving any ghosting behind on the mask. You notice all of the masking that we've done today, there was no image transfer, and that's because we're using those customized profiles. Also, remember the blade tips that I gave you, and for those folks who are going to do the longer runs, breaking those runs into shorter sections is really going to increase your accuracy and making sure that you don't waste as much material. Time is money, but so is material. So just those are my two biggest takeaways: is making sure that you're using the correct profile and that you have your settings all dialed in before you start those long jobs.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate the differences between HTM3 and HTMS. HTM3 is a shinier, glossier material. So you will have that brighter, shinier look. And it looks great on certain applications. Now we introduced the HTMS, so it will have more of that screen printed look where it's more matte to satin type finish. So those are one of the main differences that you will see right away is the sheen of it.
Well, we answered quite a few questions during the actual webinar. Are there any outstanding questions there that we should?
Let's see. Oh, a great question. If applied to a new garment that has not been pre-shrunk, will the material buckle after the first dry cycle?
That's going to be very material specific. Some shirts will shrink a lot more than others. If you have a 100% cotton shirt that's very heavy, you may want to have that run through a wash cycle beforehand.
Right, right.
The material that we are using here is very friendly and very forgiving, and because it is that PVC material, it has a lot of stretch, both when we're stretching it and when
polyurethane.
It's polyurethane, and it has a lot of stretch in both directions. So I haven't seen that in anything that I've ever typically done, but I have heard with other materials that is something that can that can affect your final product.
And you know what? Sometimes before you even apply the material, you're doing a pre-press. And granted, it's not that long, so that kind of helps. As you're getting out the wrinkle, getting out the excess moisture, that should hopefully even, shrink it a little bit more or, help prep the shirt or garment better. So that way when you apply it, you have a better stick to it. Have you used it on neoprenes such as wetsuits? I personally have not tried either of those materials on it, but it does sound interesting. I would think that the HTM3 may work a little better because of the stretch, but if you have a little of that material to try, because you're hitting it with only about 295, 300 degrees, maybe a little bit lower, and about 15 seconds, so that should not warp or distort the neoprene too badly. So get a test sample piece if you can. We have pre-printed, pre-cut samples of HTM3 and HTMS. Just you can request those. We send it along with the transfer mask. So all you have to do is follow the instructions to weed, and there you have like the pre-printed, and you go through the process and you can test it. So we can definitely supply you with that. Just go to our website and request the samples. It's always best to test and see what works best.
Any other questions, Lily?
Oh, another, will it work on canvas, more so like awnings? Well, we've done canvas bags, and we've done kind of the thicker canvas more so for like the director's chairs. So I think the main concern is for awnings, there's usually, isn't there a coating?
There's a lot of different materials out there. You need to double check with the manufacturer what kind of material it is. Some of them aren't, they're a polyester, and then they're also coated. So
right, to give it that UV durability and longevity. Absolutely. So once again, for something like that, ask for samples, see get as much information as you can in regards to coating and things of that nature, how much heat can be applied to it without distorting it, and if anything, please, please, please test. Do your test. And I always tell people, like, have a notebook, journal, whatever, and write down everything from temperature, time, pressure setting, and go from there. And you can always make adjustments as needed.
Great.
But we thank you for your time with us. I know we have run over, but we appreciate the questions. And for those that we've missed, we know how to get in touch with you, and we will answer your questions as quickly as we can. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be archived. So you can go to our website and to Roland Academy section, and it's the webinars on demand. So give us about a week to get everything edited and posted. So it will be up there for you to review and maybe catch things that you may have missed the first time around. So. All
right, well, thank you again for joining us for this edition of Roland Academy online webinar series. I'm Daniel Valade.
And I'm Lily Hunter. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you
a
again
great
for your
day.
time. Great day.
Bye.